Hi, and welcome back to another Evolve to Win show with Heather and Paul.
Hey, everybody. Thanks for tuning in today. We're talking about how you can harness the power of competition in your goal achieving and use competition to help you develop a burning desire, which is necessary for accomplishing every goal that you have out there.
So if you've ever read the Think and Grow Rich book, which I highly recommend.
Number one success book out there, in my opinion.
And one of the biggest takeaways that I got from Think and Grow Rich was how a burning desire is really, and he talks about being a white hot burning desire for the things that you want. And he gives all of these different examples of very successful people in the world. And they all had this burning desire. And so we were talking a little bit about that yesterday after seeing a really good movie. And so Heather, you tell about the movie.
I wonder if you guys have seen Ford versus Ferrari yet. And if you haven't seen it, you might want to look out for a spoiler alert. I don't think we're going to tell you anything that you wouldn't already know if you watched the previews. But what was really evident to us in watching Ford versus Ferrari is how all the different players really worked to develop that burning desire that's necessary to achieve the goals that they were after. Right. So the premise of the story is that Ford II, who owned the Ford
son
company,
of Henry Ford.
Was he the son? I thought he was the grandson. Well, anyway,
maybe it was.
I think he's the grandson. Not sure it matters, but what does matter is that he wanted to buy the company Ferrari because Ferrari was about bankrupt, even though they had created one of the most,
iconic cars that would win just about every race that was out there.
Yeah, won Le Mans over and over and over and over. But they were about to go bankrupt. And so Ford sends a team out to try to buy Ferrari, and Ferrari totally played them. And then they ended up getting sold to Fiat. Is that right? So that transaction that didn't happen was really what lit a fire under Ford to want to produce the best race car ever, right? So it was in his defeat, right, that all of a sudden he turned the corner and he made it his mission in life to build a car that would beat Ferrari. And so I want you to think back to the last time that you've achieved a major goal. There are some of you out there who are so motivated by failure. Like when either something hasn't worked for you and you make it your mission to go after it, right? That's one option. Or if somebody tells you you can't do something, are you actually fired up by that? Because some people are and some people are not, right?
Yeah, and I think there's this third way, and that is that somebody offends you, and in a way, like sort of, what is it like?
Like gets you at your core,
tests your honor, or not your honor, but I mean, just tests who you are, and then you question, like it's maybe something that you need to take on, but somebody calls you out on it, and then you're like, you know what? Screw them. I am going to do this. Like you get so fired up because you want to do it and it's a little bit different from what you said. In that, somebody, I don't know how you explained that before.
Well, I totally see what you're saying. Like if somebody attacks you kind of at your core belief,
like
right?
It's almost like a fight or flight thing that goes off where you are just like so pissed that somebody did that to you that you then are going to do anything to make it right or to, show them that you can do it.
Yeah. And you actually see this in various different moments throughout the movie if you look for it. So if you haven't seen the movie yet, I want you to be on the lookout for what happens that actually fuels the fire to get each of these people to accomplish the goal that they're after. Because you'll see it in every different character has this fuel, and it shows up in different ways, right? And for different reasons.
Right.
So if I were to tell you a personal story about one of the times that I remember that I was really fueled to create a burning desire that was otherwise dormant. Okay. So I think this burning desire has to be somewhere there within you to begin with, right? Because Napoleon Hill says, dreams aren't made of indifference or of laziness or of lack of ambition, right? So it's got to be there somewhere at your core. but then it's almost like somebody helps to ignite it. Right. So for me in my world, what it made me think of is when I first came out of law school, I was a practicing attorney in the suburbs. I went with a small practice, and it was, like all set up for me. I had a great boss, and he was really grooming me to ultimately take over his practice. And but I always wished inside that I had gotten into a big firm in the city, but I didn't have the grades to do that. And so me getting into a big firm was like just not happening out of law school. Well, so I had this dormant desire to be an attorney in a big firm in Chicago, but I had told myself that I didn't qualify, that I didn't have, the criteria, and so therefore I couldn't do it. So that's what was holding me down. Now, my boss at the time said to me during one of my reviews, it was a really positive review, and he was like, he was a great boss, and he was being very gracious, but he made a comment that would alter the path of my life. And it was such a simple comment, and I'm sure he doesn't even know he said it. But he said to me at one point, he said, Heather, you're doing really great here in this practice, and you'll continue to do well. He said, you and I, we were not cut out for those big firms in the city. And I literally stopped myself in my tracks, and I was like, what do you mean we're not cut out for this? Like, I had that moment where that statement became a challenge for me, and it almost like a competition, right? And I am someone who thrives on competition. So if you tell me I can't do something, and it's something that I actually want to do, I am way more likely to want to go out there and prove you wrong, like do whatever it takes. And that's exactly what I did. When he said we're not cut out for it, I made it my mission to get myself into a big firm in the city, and I did.
Well, and it's what you had a lack of confidence in that you could go into a larger firm.
Totally.
And so that was sitting underneath in that dormant stage, and you questioned yourself.
Yeah.
But it took somebody to question my own lack
doubt
of confidence and doubt.
Yes.
To bring that out and say, you know what? I can do this.
Yeah. Because I wasn't. So here's what happens, I think, a lot of times when we doubt ourselves, and we all do, we are sort of in denial that we're in this doubt. We don't even recognize what we're saying to ourselves. And so I wasn't really even like fully consciously aware that I had kept myself where I was because of my own insecurities. I wasn't even really aware of that. I was just like, oh, I was one of the lucky ones. I got a job out of law school, right? A lot of people didn't, and I just went with it. But that was not what was making me happy. I didn't want to be where I was, but I wouldn't even acknowledge that. So think about that. How many of you have something that you actually have this desire, but it's dormant, right? So think about your dormant desires. It's something that you would love to have, but you've got a really good story about why you don't have it. Mm-hmm. I don't know if you can think of any times in your life where you had, a similar challenge. Like you are so wired in competitively when it comes to sports. So I don't know if you can come up with something, but I feel like you have a competitive side to you that's even unique based on your behavioral style. Like a lot of times you think of these like type A, super driven,
like alpha
men or
male, women,
alpha female would be the ones to have that competitive spirit. Well, as you know, Paul, he's like really laid back and reserved and go with the flow. But you put him in any sport, especially you put a tennis racket in his hand, and he goes like on a scale from 1 to 10 on competitiveness, you're a 12. A 15, I don't know, but like you're so competitive.
Yeah, but this brings up a good point around leadership and in raising kids, and we use the acronym of NICE. Mm-hmm. The word nice, like you're so nice to people, you're so nice to your kids, you're so nice to your direct reports or employees that you work with, and what nice actually means is nothing inside me cares enough. And in the context of what we're talking about is that sometimes you have to call your kids out or call an employee out or somebody that you care about to get them fired up because they have that, what Heather was talking about, which is that insecurity desire that's going on, but they need somebody to question it and to get them fired up a little bit about it and have them take that on. And that's what sometimes, you look at this, that your boss literally changed who you are in that moment. Totally. You made a different decision about who you were going to be, and it was a good thing. It was bad for him because you left,
Yeah.
but it was great for you because you went on and became bigger than you ever thought that you were going to be. And then how important is that for kids? Like if you let your kids be safe and let them just play in their little comfort zones and never question who they are and what they could potentially be, you're just holding them back. And it's the same way with employees.
Or even calling them out. So think about this. The way that he called me out is by agreeing with my doubt.
Yeah.
We were never cut out for that. So think about that. Like the way that you go after it could be different based on different people, but he called out my insecurity by stating it in agreement with me. He wasn't even taking me on. He wasn't pushing me saying, you could go do this. Why don't you try this? No, he was agreeing with my insecurity, and I hated it. And so think about what happens too is I was so pulled outside of my comfort zone. I had like the perturbation going on, right? Yeah. Perturbation is where you're in this place. Think about the root word perturbed, right? Perturbation is where you're in this place where you're just starting to like feel this emotion, and you have to be able to hit that level of emotion to have a breakthrough in your thinking, right? And once you break through your thinking, you're not the same person, right? So you're going to take different actions. So I had to have that breakthrough in my thinking. Now, one of the really important strategies to remember when it comes to accomplishing the goals that are most important to you is you've got to create what Napoleon Hill calls a definite purpose, right? So in my case, my definite purpose was to get back to the city and work for a larger law firm. But I didn't create the definite purpose first. I had to uncover my limiting belief, right? That was holding me back. And I had to do away with that and create that burning desire. So it was kind of like, sometimes when you set a goal, think about this. You set a goal and you put it out there, but you don't get really behind the goal. You don't develop that just relentless obsession with accomplishing the goal. Well, why don't you? Probably because your limiting beliefs they still have a hold of you, right? They're still totally in place. So if I had just set the goal of going to get a job downtown, I probably would not have accomplished that goal because I didn't have this relentless pursuit within me, right? Because I still had my old belief system that kept me exactly where I was. So I want you to do this, I want you to, as you're identifying what is that dormant desire that you have, what is it that you want to accomplish? Like, look, we're coming up at the end of the decade. We've got just over a month left before the decade ends. And, have you really gotten clarity on your 2020 vision? That's like a nice little pun, isn't it? 2020 vision.
Yeah, I got it.
Yeah, you got it. You with me on that? You're like,
I see what you did there.
Yeah, I see what I did there. Do you have clarity on your 2020 vision? And if there's something out there that you want, but you don't feel like you're totally obsessed with this desire, it's because you've got some beliefs where you're stuck, right? There are some beliefs that have you where you are right now that are not releasing you to create that burning desire. So some strategies to create the burning desire. One way is to really uncover what those limiting beliefs are, so you can start to attack them, like literally just attack them. But another strategy is through repetition. So another way to reduce the hold of those limiting beliefs is to create a vision that's so compelling for yourself and repeat it enough times. You repeat it day in and day out as many times as you can per day. And you imagine this, close your eyes and you think of it like an image. You create this image of what you want, and you begin to start feeling the emotions of what it would feel like to have whatever it is that you want. And you do it again and again and again. And the more often you can repeat it, and the more you can get present to that burning desire, that emotion that exists, it's in that repetition that the flame will continue to build.
And I think that's one of the challenges that people have when they're setting goals for themselves, is that they're excited about the goal, but they may not have that white hot burning desire for it. And what the white hot burning desire does for you is it allows you to, anytime that you have, things that come up, roadblocks that you have, things that are just going to happen throughout the time that you're trying to achieve that goal, that you need to have that burning desire to be able to push through that and
That's
become
right.
better.
To overcome the obstacles that no doubt are going to come up as you're going after your goal.
Yeah, and if you don't have that, it makes it challenging. And that's why a lot of people fail in their goals, because they set a goal that they're kind of excited about, but they are not 100% in. The old Karate Kid. I always go back to the Karate Kid analogy. And Mr. Miyagi says to Daniel-san, karate, yes? Okay. Karate, no? Okay. But he said, and you're in the middle of the road. And then in the middle of the road, you go in the middle of the road, you get squashed. You get hit by a truck. You are either committed 100% in on your goal or 100% not in your goal. If you're anywhere in between, you will get squashed. Your goal will get squashed. You will not be able to accomplish that because you have to be all in.
You have to be all in.
All the time.
And so you think about what all in looks like. Here's the thing. You know exactly what it looks like because it was present for every goal you've ever hit. Like, I can remember the times where I got committed, where I drew the line in the sand, and that's very, very different from I want. Mm-hmm. Right? If you just want a goal, if you just want a certain result, it's not enough. When you decide, so think about the word decide actually comes from the Latin word decidere. And sorry for all you Latin scholars if I completely butchered the pronunciation of that, but
I don't think there's any Latin scholars anywhere left.
Of course there are. I know people who actually study Latin as their language.
Oh my gosh.
Yeah, I know. Anyway, decidere is the root word for decide, and it means literally to cut off. So when you make a decision that you're going after something, you have cut off all alternatives. It's like, who was it? Was it Napoleon who sent the boats back and burned the boats so that they couldn't retreat?
We're just making up stuff now, but it is some warrior.
I thought it was Napoleon.
I don't think so.
Oh, anyway.
But anyway, I don't want
burning
to
of the
story.
boats.
Yes, the burning of the boats.
It's a good story.
100%.
Anyway, it's about being so fully committed to whatever that result is that you're after, that you will not retreat, even when the obstacles come up, because they will. So, like, let's talk about our Win the Quarter program. We just launched video 1 last week, and you know what? There were so many obstacles that came up for us. There were so many things that went wrong along the way in the production of that program, where we had to refilm and refilm and refilm and then refilm. And the reason that we stayed on top of that is because we made the decision, we made the commitment. And my fuel to keep going, by the way, was that I reached out to my group that I called my course advisors of 100 women, and I had them, feed back to me what they needed. And it was, what I would do is every time something came up, and I wanted to quit. I literally did, just because, we're just so busy with the business and things weren't going the way that I wanted them to go. I wanted to quit and be like, let's just do it later. I wasn't going to quit altogether, but my go-to would be procrastination. Like, let's just do it next quarter. And the thing that kept me going was thinking about those 100 women and the opportunities that they had in front of them, and the fact that the overwhelming majority of them did not have a current action plan in place to solve their number one most pressing issue or challenge. And so that was my fuel. And every time I wanted to quit, I would go back and I would read the survey results. So I asked the question in the survey. I said, if you could wave a magic wand and make your number one challenge disappear, what would that challenge be? And they fed back to me all of the different challenges that they were facing in their world. And it's painful to review that, to read that, and to know that people you care about are suffering from whatever the list of challenges were, and that they didn't have a plan to fix it. So that was my fuel. That was my, created within me the competition to overcome whatever obstacle was there so that we could complete the program.
Yeah.
And I don't know what kept you going, but you had to keep going on the production side.
What I want to say about competition too is that that you really have to identify in the people that you're working with, especially if you're trying to inspire them or you're trying to lead them or you are trying to get them motivated to do something for you in a competitive way. And we talked about how some competitions are demotivators for people. So, for example, for me in a sales role, I don't like when I'm like a friendly competition with other people. I don't it does nothing for me. It doesn't motivate me at all. Whereas other people, and I see it happen for you,
totally motivated.
Get so excited about a friendly competition. It doesn't do anything for me. So you really have to watch out when you're setting up competitions for people to really identify, does this motivate them or not? Sometimes, like in a competition, I may do less than I would have if there was no competition. Mm-hmm. So it's just interesting how different people are. But if somebody, like we were talking about before, like really got me angry about something, uncovered something in me that I was questioning about myself, then I would be like, I'd get that white hot, like burning desire to take it on and prove them wrong. So there's certain ways that people are motivated by competition, and you have to be aware of how you're motivating people, because motivating in competition, because you never know exactly what you're going to get. And I think a good way of doing it is just asking somebody, are they motivated? Are you motivated by this sales competition that we have going on? And some people will tell you just flat out, no, it just doesn't motivate me at all. Actually, it may demotivate me. In
which case, maybe for that particular individual, you start to ask questions to find out what would motivate them. Maybe they'd be way more motivated by the team elevating performance as opposed to them having to beat somebody.
Collaborating with a team where they can work together. That may be a much better way to spark some competition in that person.
And then the other thing is, there are many of you, when I say, how do you relate to competition? I want you to just really think about that question for yourself. How do you relate? What is your relationship with competition? I know many people who are very, very competitive, but when they get their assessment results back and they see how competitive they are, they're still pushing back. They're like, oh, I don't think I want to win or gain an advantage as much as this assessment tells me I want to. So I just start asking them questions to find out where that competitive spirit is so that they can connect with it. And most oftentimes when they're pushing back, it's because they always think of competition as me having to beat you. Mm-hmm. But the way that they're driven is they are competitive with themselves. Mm-hmm. They want to be a better person. They want to achieve better results. It doesn't matter so much about me beating you. I want to be better. I relate actually way better to competition with myself and me being better. And so think about this than I am about like, I want to beat my competitor. Mm-hmm. That doesn't fuel me nearly as much as me being a better me. So you think about that. What are you measuring right now that will help you compete with you if that's how you're wired? That's one of the ways that you can use this technique, this strategy in goal setting to really achieve a higher level of success. Mm-hmm. Once you know who you are and how you relate to competition, use that and use it all the time. And if you are one like me who really likes friendly competition, line it up. Like find colleagues of yours and put a friendly competition together. I mean, like for me, I don't need to have a big financial prize, but it could be anything. Like just, but so figure out what it is for you and use every little bit of it. Yeah.
Yep, that's good.
So let's wrap it up. And I also want to share with you, invite you to go to winthequarter.com. If any of this sparked in you this desire to really go after whatever that dormant desire or dormant goal is of yours, winthequarter.com, we just released video number 1. And video number 1 is all about identifying your blind spots. It's identifying those limiting beliefs that are holding you back currently. Now, look, one thing I know for certain about every one of you is that you don't know what you don't know. Right? That I'm sure of. And what that is a blind spot. So a lot of times those limiting beliefs, they're hiding there. They're not in your view. They're not in your awareness. And in that video, I bring you through an exercise to help you uncover and see what that is. So if you go to winthequarter.com and register, you get this series for free. It's a 3-part mini series that will help you to not only set, but achieve the goals that are most meaningful, right? I'm going to teach you a different way of goal setting, one that you've never seen before, that we've developed over the last 15 years in practice. So really excited to have that out there. Listen, if there's anybody who you think needs to hear this message, please feel free to share it. And if you haven't connected with us yet, please do.
Thanks for watching and listening, and have a great day.